one-way deposit, a donation to skew the share price, and the next depositor found it down to nothing. Minimum liquidity 1000 Y, locked at 0 address forever. Is the line that kills it. There are 3 findings. So if by any chance we write and we have the 2 already, then that means there is 1 left.
This is a real audit contest, replayed. I open ElasticSwap for the first time and audit it live, blind, no answer key, and I'll tell you when I miss something. It's a live session from Zealynx Insiders, my membership, where we build protocols, then audit their forks together and score against the real results. If you want to learn that way, join us. The link's below.
Yeah, so I already opened the repo and actually cloned it as well. First thing I did, to be fair, it's nowadays is I clone it with cloud. I mean, clone it on the terminal. I use mainly the terminal with cloud, but yes, I need to read the code anyways. So I honestly didn't plan how I'm going to audit this, but I'm going to just think as I'm here. So as agreed, I'll see how I start, right? And I'll just kind of stream this, and then we will use the rest of the hour until the whole hour, my 10 a.m. While you guys are also having a look at the code and then raising any questions and similarities you find from Uniswap V2 and so on. So let's see, because first of all, I'm really curious how similar this is from Uniswap V2, and the scope here is exchange factory and math So from this I can see that it has a factory. So that's probably very similar to what Uniswap factory, the contract is doing. So I'll have a look at it to see if it differs much, and then at the exchange. And since this is a math lib, then I will see that later. But yeah, I'm gonna have a look at the code now quickly. I'm just curious, to be honest. Didn't see this, didn't do this public contest before. So yeah, let's see. It says the contract for ElasticSwap. This is Devin or Windsurf was called before. I used to use the ChatGPT or Cloud here, but I just switched to Cloud Code directly. I think it's also possible to add it here as a extension or something like that, but it's, from my opinion, better to just do it on the terminal. So let's see what I see. Events, the constructor setting the fee address. Okay, create new. So it creates a new exchange. Probably so we had create pair. So let's see. This is probably that pair. Yes, I think so. It could be interesting. I didn't think about it, but to have, maybe you can do it, guys. To have open in a separate window the Uniswap V2 might be interesting, and that's also a way that maybe you guys can see similarities and so on to understand it better. But yeah, let's see. So we have 3 functions, it seems. Create new exchange. Let's read it. Call to create a new ERC20 token pair. Yeah, that's what I thought. So it's like the Uniswap's create pair. And just passing the details. So we have a require that they are different. That's fair. And that is not address 0. And it needs, it should not exist. That's I remember that from Uniswap. And then we're saving it. Okay. And then we set the fee address that we pass in the constructor. And this is the public one. There is something interesting that I just remember from the top of my head, but it should be in the factory. Wasn't it supposed to double check the fact that what was it, that one was bigger than the other, the order matter, something like that. And here it skips a few things. I'm wondering, I'm going to, let me open the circle here, and I want to go, because I think I did sessions. It probably was Build Academy session. Yeah, that I was speaking about the vulnerabilities, wasn't it? Not here. Anyone remembers? Here, maybe. But anyways, I will get in more details later. But But yeah, to be fair, in this case, what I would do is how it's called, create. Yeah, if you can, it would be good if you can open, because I don't have it. But if you can open Uniswap V2, it will verify that. You can even verify that manually. But anyways, I'll get that running there. So here, probably there's not much more. Only owner to set the fee address that it's meant to not be 0 and to be different than the one that was already set. This is the state variable fee addresses. Okay, so that's fine. And this is just retrieving the state variable. This is probably not super relevant, but usually when especially for clients, when I see that they are using ownable, I always raise it as well, low or informational. That is better if they use ownable two-step, because it's just safer. It's better that way. Yeah, in this case, I would have raised it, and I would raise it. It's not super relevant, but it's usually the least and informational because it's worth raising. It's extra security, and we always want to recommend those things. Then it depends on the public contest if it's a finding or not. But yeah, for clients, I always raise it. Let's see what it shared. I mean, I'm reading it. Do you guys want me to read it in out loud? Maybe it's better. I don't know if it's what works best for you.
It's okay, just explain.
Mm-hmm. And any thoughts on what I'm just checking? Maybe you have your opinion or idea before I read it. Maybe like you know what I'm checking, right? Okay. Anyways, so yeah, it says that it's not the bug, but let's see. In ElasticSwap, the two slots are not interchangeable. Base token, elastic or fixed supply, and quote token assumed to have a fixed supply. Okay. Or maybe that information is in Mathlib. Treats base token decay and quote token decay asymmetrically. Sorting by address would scramble which token gets the elastic supply accounting. So the absence of a sort is the right call. Okay. So that just works different here. What is actually missing? One-directional duplicate. Yeah, that's exactly. It's not checking that for duplicate, it's only checking that it's here. No, wait. Yeah, duplicate. That's what I saw earlier. That it's only checking like this, and it may be. Well, I understand that it should not allow duplicates, but let's see what it says. Combined with no sorting, so exchange address by token address BA returns address 0. Even when a pool for that pair exists, an integrator querying by another pair gets a false negative. So that both succeed. Two exchanges over the same token pair. The reverse one puts a potential rebasing token in the assumed fixed supply. It says impact is capped because nothing on chain consumes either mapping. Data pure off-chain registry. So this is an integrator observability issue, not a fund loss path. Note that the suit only covers the same direction duplicate. The reverse case is untested. We suggest it wasn't considered rather than accepted. Let's see what an attacker can do. Here anyone passes arbitrary strings and the result is stamped. That flag means, but that's something else that is missing. Yeah, but so that will be, that's interesting thing to consider already. Probably not, well, I would need to dig more into it to see what's the impact and what's, but should not happen. I understand we don't want to have duplicates there. Not sure how much it can affect. Yeah, it says it's not a found loss path, but it might affect in different ways. Now there is apparently some other things. But I didn't notice. Is using create here? Where is it? No. Permissionless creation. That flag means only this factory deployed it, which is worthless as a trust signal when creation is permissionless. An integrator reading it create instead of create to in exchange factory. Do you see where create is? Why it says there is create? That's odd. 55 to 62? Weird. Oh yeah, that's a new exchange. Okay, yeah, okay, maybe that's the equivalent. Makes the address factory nonce dependent, not deterministic address. That's fair, yeah. And anyone from running with another createNewExchange shift up a pre-computed address. Design difference. Informational, okay. Event omits the tokens. Event missing, okay. The defensible finding is asymmetric registry. No sort and reverse mapping right. Frame it at low with the impact scoped to integrators. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That this for sure worth raising. The impact we will need to figure out more. But okay, so it seems that we might have found something already, an issue. Okay, I'll keep it in mind, or maybe I will do as what was it here? I think I don't have any more of these tags here, but I usually will do this. Oh, no check for. Oh, look at that. Even Windsurf already knew about that, and it's not connected with the terminal. Interesting. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I liked to use Windsurf instead of VS Code. I mean, I don't know how VS Code works now, but it was interesting that it was able to see improvements or and so on.
Sorry for interrupting, but does it mean if there is existing pair of USDC DAI, for example, it will accept creation of DAI USDC?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry
As it
for
is,
interrupting,
yes.
but I just raised my hand and you didn't see.
What was that? Sorry.
Sorry for interrupting, but I raised my hand and you didn't see it.
Ah, no, that's okay. You guys are supposed to interrupt me, so this is for you to participate. To be fair, so yeah, like what do you guys? Anyone wants to? Like I know usually these open questions don't work, and that it's okay, but maybe any of you has any yeah, like do you see this? Do you agree? Did you notice this? Would you have found it, or what do you think of the how I've just started with the audit? I mean, this is small code base, right? But I don't know any thoughts, questions, or anything so far. Maybe what I said about using Windsurf and the fact that it even highlighted the comment alone, that was interesting. I don't know. Otherwise, I'll just continue. But soon you need to start auditing as well. So
The extension called inline bookmarks, by the way, that highlight the audit tag.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I checked the factory was because I mean I've read Uniswap V2 so many times that, and especially together with you guys, and you know this is the main reason why I wanted and I still want to build the whole Uniswap or the protocols before we audit the forks, because we will have it fresh and we will look at the code and we'll remember what are the most important things. So that's why I know that most of you want to audit or audit with me and so on, and that's why I decided to do this, to start already this shadow audit. However, I still think it's worth finishing together and going through the actual models, because we will have it fresh. I will have it fresh. You guys as well, and then we will start auditing different protocols, and we will see things faster and we will understand things faster. Otherwise, if I start skipping the fact that we will build the protocols, well, it will be different. It will not be the same. You guys might or might not do it. So yeah, it's different. So, but yeah, it just proved that it's worth doing. Let's have a quick look at the exchange. It says that this contract is representing the single ERC20 pair. Okay, so here what we will have add liquidity, remove liquidity, and swap. Okay, there were quite some things to consider. I remember that potential issues here, but yeah, let's have a look at the code. Yeah, and this one is already using the AB08.4, and Uniswap V2 was using 0.5, if I'm not mistaken. There is one thing that first comes to my mind, and is that minimum liquidity constant. Does anyone remember what was that for? I still didn't look at the code, but I'm looking at the constants here or anything. Do you guys remember that? How is that? Maybe minimum liquidity, and I think it was set to 1,000 or something like that. Does anyone remember this from the lessons? That was to. Let me drink some water. Well, I'm gonna give you some time to think. I'm gonna look for it. What I have in my mind. Feel free to unmute. I mean, come on, don't be afraid. You can be wrong, and if you're wrong, then that's it. Then you just we check, and that's it. Or I mention why it's wrong or not. But don't be afraid of speaking, guys. I'm gonna have to check, but it was the first depositor, or it was the donation attack or first depositor attack. I'm wondering if how it works here in Circle, if I can search for here. I'm wondering how does this work. Oh, there you go. That's nice. So from one of the sessions, the second one, add liquidity. The transfer first pattern that keeps the pair free of approvals, the geometric mean for the first deposit, and the full walkthrough of the inflation attack. One-way deposit, a donation to skew the share price, and the next depositor found it down to nothing. Minimum liquidity, 1000 Y, locked at 0 address forever. Is the line that kills it. So I think I still would have to double check probably with AI and look, but there are chances that it's not protected. So let me go to, let's see what it says. So what it does, token quant, what is this? I think what we needed to check is what happens if it had to have different behavior if the liquidity is 0 and you need to mint first. There was this check in Uniswap V2 that it would check if liquidity or balance, I don't remember the right check from the top of my head, but it was checking if the balance is 0 or the liquidity was 0. It was minting this or something. It was just to make sure the first mint was already done, even on deployment or something like that. And here, minting if token base is exchange empty. Okay, so it might be missing, but okay, I didn't. So it seems I'm assuming things, but what there is, library and MATLAB. Okay, so it seems I will still have to check this, but no, I don't think so. No, I know why it's referencing to it, or maybe it could be hidden, but let's see what it says. Your observation is correct. It's absent also there. Okay, not this is supposed to be minting to address 0. I'm not sure what it's referring to. Two different reserve sources feed the add liquidity math. Two different reserve sources. Contribution ratio. Okay, it seems it's done. The decay mechanism that's supposed to absorb balance accounting drift only looks at the base token. Is sufficient decay, computes if on base only a pure quote token donation produces 0 detected decay, so it never roots into the single asset decay branch. It just silently inflates the share denominator. So it seems we have two issues. This one and the inflation attack. There were other things relevant in remove liquidity probably. Let's look at the swap. Right on both counts with one correction to the reason. Your fix works but not the reason usually stated. The common explanation is 1000 Y makes the attack 1000 times more expensive. That's a side effect. The actual mechanism is that the burned shares permanently own a fraction of the donation, which flips the economics. Run it against this code. Remove liquidity pays pro rata on the actual balance. Another zero's LP can never be redeemed. So anything donated is split with the burn address forever. Without the burn, current code attack. Okay, so we didn't look at the remove liquidity, but it says without the burn. So you mean there is no burn in remove liquidity? There is. Attacker sees one way, total supply one way, they hold 100%. To 0 victim depositing X, they donate this, they recover 100%. With a one-way burn, well, without the burn, it means the minting to address 0, actually. Yeah, so this with adding the check. Again, it's too expensive. So yes, add it, just don't argue it in the report. Let's see what it says. Two things to keep straight. So the mechanism here is not identical to Uniswap V2. In Uniswap V2, mint computes amount 0 is the difference of, here is something I noticed. It's also not having this two different ways of controlling the balance, the actual balance of the contract and the accounting done. So the donation is created as the next minter's contribution. The attacker has to sink it into reserves. In ElasticSwap, the donation never enters internal accounting at all. Okay. It inflates the share denominator, while the contribution ratio still reads internal balances. Same backlash, different plumbing. Okay. meaning liquidity doesn't close the underlying gap. It makes the zero share theft unprofitable. But I think that's the whole idea, as we learn. It does not fix quote-side donations. Being invisible too is sufficient to keep present. Fixes what? Okay, anyways, it's a bug. We can mark it, well, somewhere. Doesn't matter, somewhere here. Like when you're auditing, like especially manually, I would not focus right away on creating the bug, especially if I know what it is about and if it's quite clear to write it, to raise it. That way you don't lose. Sorry, you don't lose much time with it. But something I'm wondering about is the fact that we don't. How might it influence the fact that we are not keeping our own accounting, as in Uniswap V2 was done? Maybe it's nothing, but I would dig into that as well. And yeah, well, to be fair, yeah, each of you guys should raise it yourselves, even though I found it. I found those issues. Or you know what? Make sure they are actually issues, because it's not the first thing that you just like. Ideally, what I would do is I will have another session here on the terminal of Cloud Code, and once I create the issue, I would try to refute it. I would try to break it or to make sure it does. I'm not missing anything. In this case, it's quite clear, I would say, but still, I would do it. I would not raise it without further investigation and so on, because it may be too obvious, but I might be missing something, because so far it's still quite high level checking and speaking or checking from memory. But yeah, I mean, we know from here that there are 3 findings. So if by any chance we write and we have the 2 already, then that means there is 1 left. I would let you guys to investigate why Uniswap V2 is checking the reserves and the balances of the contract. I'm wondering if that takes us somewhere. Do you guys know what I mean? Anyone wants to speak? I can ask actually. Maybe Mohammed, do you know what I mean about this, that it's not being done here? I'm not eager to talk. Anyway, so yeah, there are 10 minutes left. I was auditing more than planned, but that's okay. So the idea here is that you guys continue with the audit, make sure these are actually issues, and raise it on your side, right? Like raise it here, so that once it finishes the audit, then you will have the results as well. We can have a short catch up tomorrow, but I'm gonna need you to come with questions. Like I should have the questions before the event starts, probably same time tomorrow or something like that. I will create the event, and if there are no questions, I would understand we don't need the session.
Okay, so you continue the audit and then we will have a new session tomorrow, right?
Yes, like you need to audit this on your own. You need to continue with this, and again, verify the issues we might have found or I might have found here, and there is still for sure either 1 missing or more, that if what I found is not an issue. So I see that. But yeah, so yeah, please continue auditing, raise what you have. Also, I'm going to create. Did we create this already? I'm gonna create here a space. Sorry, a post for this, and I would like you guys to be active here and to write any doubts, any potential bugs you might have already found, or differences that you see from ElasticSwap and Uniswap that you realize that are not issues, or things like that. And I can see that you guys mentioned something meanwhile in the comments. I didn't have it open. So Anna, yeah, you say to prevent first LP provider from manipulating. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. I have some few questions. Especially regarding findings. Because like you can see some irregularities in the code base, and and then you try to look at the consequences. Right now, what I've observed is that in most contexts, any irregularity in the code base leading to maybe rebates or denial of service is not accepted. So, my question is that in terms of analyzing, like if it's actually a finding, should only metrics be fund leading to fund loss?
You mean we should only raise fund loss related issues?
Yes, I mean, like in terms of us analyzing if a bug is valid or not, should our only weighing metrics be if funds are lost or not?
Not necessarily, no. That's usually funds are lost or locked or anything. That means most likely the severity is high or critical unless the likelihood is low or very low or not feasible. But no, because you need to look at the code and let's see. So for instance, this issue, this is not going. This is not necessarily related to fund loss. It might damage the protocol in different way. That's why we would need to investigate how it can affect, what's the impact, and so on. And that's for you to guys to check, to investigate. But that's there are many type of issues that are not related to fund loss.
All right. So, then what about temporary denial of service? Actually, a temporary revert before the team can fix that. Maybe like admins and so on and so forth. Because why I'm actually asking this question is that in some contexts you might find a vulnerability that leads to maybe a temporary DOAs and it's actually flagged as invalid. So I'm trying to ask this question to clarify. Maybe if in terms of if the severity matrix is different from context for like private audit. Because there are some bugs that you should be less known in private audit, but in context, they are counted as invalid.
Wait, so what's the question there?
Okay. The question is that should analysis and our weighing matrix be in terms of context or depending on who we are auditing it for? If we are actually applying in a context or we are actually applying in a private audit?
Okay.
Because I feel like
Mm-hmm. Yes, so it kind of depends. Generally, if there are some things that are not probably going to be accepted as a finding in nowadays, especially like I remember when I started 4 years ago, the unknownable two-step, as I mentioned earlier, would be a valid finding, and then you would even get money from that. I mean, I did get back then maybe not especially for this, but some smaller things because those are or were considered lows. Nowadays, it's true that it works differently, and while that might be a finding, maybe it's just full of duplicates and you don't get anything, or maybe they don't care. I know that in some of the public contest platforms, they or Immunify or things like that, they are clearly specifying in the criteria what they care about, what they consider. So I've experienced myself also raising some issues some time ago that they consider it as invalid because that's not what they care about at that moment. Maybe I think like Hack and Proof only cares about some critical or high issues, and they are very clear about that. And maybe Immunify, I think or Cantina, they were sharing what what the criteria is, what they care, like fund loss or similar, or denial of service or things like that. So if it's specified, if it's clear there, and you find some law that it may be valid, that it may be true, but that they say maybe they didn't say explicitly, of course, they don't care about that issue, but they say what they're looking for people to submit about. That probably is done to avoid, well, less relevant or less severe issues. However, in a private audit, that's not the case for sure. They care about everything, and you need to understand doing a private audit for your own client that is not a random public contest, a client that you don't know, that is not your client. This is someone that has trusted you to review their code. So even small things like that are not issues, but that you can recommend, that you can mention, like in this case, if I were if this were my client, I would also potentially like recommend stop using requires and use condition and custom errors because it's gonna be cheaper. But that's not an issue nowadays. But actually, back a while back, then maybe it would be considered. But nowadays, that's not an issue. However, it's worth mentioning to the client. Maybe you can just raise it as informational because it's not has no risk there. But then for your own clients, then you want to give more advice. Of course, you don't want to lead with those. You don't want to focus too much time on those things that are less relevant. But usually I would leave, depending on how long is the audit, of course, but I would leave some time at the end to try to raise those things I found meanwhile.
Yeah, all right. All clear, so.
Thanks for asking. Any more questions?